Hey guys, it's Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Welcome back. I figured it would be helpful to post this video ahead of time because there's a couple of things that I talked about in the community section of my blog, or my community section of the YouTube channel, I should say, and I want to bring up some of those topics, okay? So go ahead and hit the subscribe button right over here if you want to stick around and learn a little bit more about this channel and about me. We've grown a ton since I last did a video, which was the week before Christmas time. We've gained at least 590 new subscribers over that week, which was so cool to see it kind of grow and advance even without my videos being posted and us really communicating. And then you guys were asking a bunch of questions in the community section, and then also in the comments section of certain videos, and then you were emailing me too, so it's really good. Thank you so much for all that support. And as you guys know, my grandmother's in the hospital. I did a community post about it, and I thank you so much for those of you who have, you know, sent me messages and responded to my post in the community section, and have, you know, really said some really sweet things, who are praying for my family as well. So thank you so much. I wanted to go over the 5 stages of grief with you, because here we are after Christmas, and you know, there's a lot of people who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed with life. You know, we had Thanksgiving, and then the days between Thanksgiving and Christmas are really different in terms of, like, you know, how you see the world and how you see yourself and your family. And there's just like this general warmth, you know, that you feel, and you know, it really makes you feel hopeful in the moment. And then there's a flip side to that, right? Because then you start to feel, or you can start to feel, I should say, depressed and anxious and suicidal, and sometimes really, really hopeless, especially when you don't have the people that you love there with you, or you don't have people that you wish you could love. So you know, the holidays can be a little bit murky. It can be emotional. It could also trigger feelings of grief and loss, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video. And so that's the benefit to you in this video, is that I want to go through each stage of grief. I think that after the holidays, we can kind of get sucked into the position of feeling lost, and we can grieve, and we can start to experience the 5 stages of grief. Because again, you know, maybe things didn't work out like we wanted to around the holiday time, or maybe, you know, we had family, but we don't get along, we don't talk. Maybe you lost a loved one, someone that you care about. Maybe you have no one. Whatever the case, it's really hard to pick yourself back up after the holiday. Now, one of the things I've noticed, and especially in my clients, is that there's like this general lethargy, right? Everybody is kind of lethargic. Everybody's really kind of drained, tired, overwhelmed. And I'm certainly overwhelmed and drained because I have a full-time practice in addition to my own personal life. And so, you know, that's really hard to balance, not to mention the changes, right? Because we just came out of holiday season, and I tend to just be naturally tired afterwards, and I'm sure you do too. So, you know, I think it's good to pamper yourself around this time. I think it's good to engage in self-care around this time. I also think it's really good to see a therapist around this time. So right after Christmas, I like to encourage people who contact me for sessions or consultations to stay in counseling as long as they can after the holiday, because you can process your emotions, you can process your thoughts, you can set SMART goals, which I talk about right up here, or I talk about ways that you can help yourself, but I also mentioned SMART goals in the community section, so go check that out. But you can focus on goal setting. You can also focus on your emotional and psychological stability, and you can start to take concrete steps with a therapist forward in your trauma healing, in your family pathology, right? You know, dealing with intergenerational trauma. Some of you have mentioned depression and anxiety and trauma as a result of discrimination and racism. You can work with that. So, you know, I think the new year, while it can be tough, it could also catapult you into a better future, because it's something about the new year that kind of triggers people to feel they need to make some changes, right? Not those New Year's resolutions that don't work, but the changes that will make an impact long term. So let's just go ahead and talk about the 5 stages of grief, because I think it's helpful for you guys to talk about, okay? Or learn about as well. So the first stage is known as the denial stage, okay? And the denial stage is the stage where you know something has happened, you know that, you know, loss is likely, or you know that you're depressed, you know that, you know, things are going to change, right? There's some change taking place. And the same thing has occurred in my own life with my grandmother being in the hospital, right? So there's a change. Am I in denial? No, but some people go into denial, right? They say things like, I don't know if I want to go to the hospital, or I don't know if I want to attend the funeral, or, you know, I don't know if I want to clean out the house, because that means a change. So denial sets in. Denial is the process by which you either internalize or push down certain feelings, thoughts, because you don't want to deal with what's going to come with those feelings and thoughts, okay? And in order to stay above the water, in order to survive, you find yourself going into denial, either intentionally, right? You either block things intentionally or you do it unintentionally, and you become kind of numb. Some people become catatonic as well, and I'm going to put the definition of that over here. And it's like this general state of paralysis. You know, you may not want to talk. Some people don't talk. Some people don't move. There have been cases in history of psychiatric patients in hospitals like Mayview Hospital, which is a hospital in Pennsylvania. They're closed down now, but when they were in operation, you know, there were some horror stories, and there's a lot of research that talks about some of those horror stories. And so what has been mentioned are patients who got into really severe catatonic states, and you can start to have really rigid bodily movements. You can really start to hold your body, excuse me, or ball your fists and just stay in that position. Or some really severe catatonic patients would, you know, be like this in a position, and they would stay like that for hours. They wouldn't move, you know, and you try to talk to them, and it's like, hello, 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 are you there? And it's like they're somewhere else. Well, denial, really, really deep denial, can get you there. Especially if there's depression or trauma associated with it, or even grief. So denial, okay? And denial, again, can cause catatonia, it can cause depression, anxiety, and it can also worsen trauma symptoms like post-traumatic stress. While you're going through the denial period, you can also have flashbacks of something traumatic that may have happened to you in the past, okay? So, yeah, so that's really tough, okay? The denial stage is really tough. The next stage is the anger stage, and that's when everything you do, you're doing it out of anger of the situation itself, right? You don't want to be angry, but you end up sliding into anger because your emotions are so overpowering, and you don't know how to fix things. You don't know how to make things better. You don't know how to cope. You don't know how to heal. Trauma, and I always explain it this way to my clients, trauma is the process by which a traumatic situation happens to us, and we do not have the tools to manage it, okay? We don't have the tools to manage what is happening to us, and so we feel helpless, we feel lost, we develop learned helplessness, and I talk about that in this video right up here. We also develop, you know, kind of these, you know, these symptoms of, you know, relying on the world to make decisions for us, because we feel that we don't have the power to, or the strength to, or the ability, or the capability to make those decisions, or to protect, or to shield, or to love, whatever the issue may be. You know, we end up sliding into anger because we feel we don't have the tools. And we also can slide into a traumatic mindset when we feel that we don't have the tools. Okay, so let me give you some, you know, personal examples. So my family is going through a really hard time right now with my grandmother being in the hospital. If you guys didn't see my community post, go head over to the community section and take a look. My family is very multi-ethnic, so my grandmother is like really like this strong African-American Caribbean mixed woman who has these kind of expectations and belief systems. She's really independent and hardcore and rough in the sense that nothing really bothers her, okay? She can fall and get bumps and bruises and scrapes and maybe even a concussion, and she'll go to work the next day. Like, she's just that kind of a mother and a grandmother. And so the whole entire family, you know, attaches themselves to her. Let me close this, okay? The whole entire family attaches themselves to her because she's so strong. But, you know, what I found is that my family ended up in various stages. My mom broke down and started crying, and she never cries. She's like the strongest woman in the family next to my grandmother. And she broke down and started crying because she doesn't want to lose her mother. They didn't have the greatest relationship over the years, but the older they both got, the better it got. And so it's kind of like it's a major loss. Then my brother, You know, he has his family and his children, and he's pretty strong as well. But I can also hear that instead of being hurt, he's angry. There's a little bit of hostility under there, and it may be because he feels there's nothing he can do as the man of the family. Then there's me, and I'm the therapist, and I'm the one who's certified and degreed and licensed and all of that, and I know all the stuff in the medical field that I need to know when it comes to making decisions on end-of-life stuff, and really trying to make things comfortable, slipping into psychosis and changes in mental and psychological strength and ability. So, you know, there's really a lot of things that, you know, I know about the field and my family knows, but we're all going through these different stages. So here I am, and I'm thinking I'm okay, right? Because I'm the therapist, and I found myself getting kind of angry, and I was a little bit angry at the fact that I didn't feel that the medical system was doing everything that they could do. They were not attentive. And they were filling her up on drugs. And I just, you know, I'm not I'm not a drug pusher, is what I'm trying to say. I am someone who's conservative when it comes to pills and medications and so forth. If you need them, I will help you get them. If you need them, I support that. But if you don't, especially if they're opioids or narcotics, I don't want them. And I don't want them for people who need to be clear thinking and clear headed. So I had a little bit of anger going there because I just felt they weren't being very responsible, that they were being quite negligent. So I think my grief process started off as a little bit of anger, and not anger because it's happening, but anger at the people who my grandmother was in the care of, because I realized they're not as attentive and caring as they should be. And unfortunately, we have those kind of systems in the world. Everybody's not going to be attentive and caring just because they're under the title of a doctor or a nurse, and that's the scary part. We know that about the field of psychology, right? But we do have some really awesome and excellent doctors who are gifted, and they amaze me every time. But unfortunately, we don't have that everywhere. So there you have it. But so we had that, and so I think we're now sliding into the stage of depression. I'm holding up really well. But I think in some ways my mother, and I think in some ways my brother, and my younger brother, there's a little bit of sadness there because we don't know what's going to happen to her, and we're trying our hardest to fight the system and make sure that she's healthy and safe and in a right frame of mind. So the depression stage, that's when you start to feel helpless and hopeless, and you really start to question life and question the meaning and question the system, and everybody starts looking like your enemy, right? You feel like you need to say things and do things to get yourself out of a situation where you feel trapped. You may even begin to fight the system because you feel that it's breaking you down, and when you start to feel broken down, you start to feel depressed, you start to feel overwhelmed, and you start to give up. Your heart just starts to give up. So that's the depression stage. Then we have the bargaining stage, and I think my mother was a little bit in that stage. My mom said before she broke down and started crying last week, she says to me, I told Mama that I wanted to fry her some food before, fry her favorite shrimp and her favorite fish dish and her favorite stir fry before New Year's, and she didn't make it back. She went to the hospital Christmas Eve. I'm sorry, not Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, later in the day. So she never made it for New Year's Eve. But my mom began to kind of bargain, I think, and she was kind of saying, God, please give me one more chance to do this for her, and please give me one more chance to be with her. So yeah. So that's basically where my mom was in the bargaining stage, and that's when you begin to ask God to just give you another chance. You also begin to say things like, maybe if I contribute to society, if I give back, if I sound loving and caring, if I sound hopeful, if I sound whatever, that if I pray a lot, if I become more charitable, that she won't die, or he or she won't be in this state. And that's really a state of helplessness and hopelessness. We also have the acceptance stage, and none of us are there yet. We're really not. I think I'm at a stage of accepting that help is not always available just because you go to a hospital. And my family, I think in bits and pieces, they're coming to a place of acceptance that, okay, this is not a temporary situation. This is going to be a long-term change. But acceptance is the stage where you don't necessarily have to accept the situation, but you begin to see it differently. You begin to cope a little bit better, and you begin to process where you are, where they are. And so the acceptance stage is really, really hard to get to. But once you do get there, you begin to experience post-traumatic growth, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on this channel. I did post a video earlier at the top where you can learn a little bit more about that. So thank you so much, guys, for being with me today. I encourage you to give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful, and go ahead and share it with someone if it'll be helpful to them. I want to apologize if I'm giving you way too much information, but I think that to see a therapist going through something that maybe you've gone through, it might be helpful. And I think also it's kind of therapeutic to know that, okay, there's other people experiencing stuff, even the people who are degreed and licensed and certified. So I thank you for your encouragement and your prayers and your supportive comments to me. Thank you so much. I will see you guys on Wednesday with another video. I did say the 13th. I think I said the 14th. You guys are going to learn about the stages of traumatic healing. So we're going to talk about that in next video. Thank you so much, guys. Bye. I'll see you soon.